Aye, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Middleton Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. I want to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded. And with that, I'm going to move right on to item number 1, which is explanation of a warrant from Mr. Sheehan, warrant number 2123. Mr. Sheehan, please.
Mr. Chairman, if we could put this off, I didn't have a chance to get the warrant today from the accounting department, so I trust everything is in order, but if we could put this off to the meeting on the 18th, I would appreciate it, and I'll present that 2123 along with 2124.
Okay. Apologize if there was a last second email. I didn't see that. All right, then. No objection to that. We'll take a motion to accept the minutes of the open session from April 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Tim, if you could take a vote, please.
Sure. Mr. Prentakis.
Yes.
Mr. Preston.
Yes.
Mr. Cassiotis.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. And in the same, we'll take a motion to accept the joint session with the Finance Committee from April 8th, 2021.
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. If I could get a vote from Tim.
Okay, Mr. Prentakis.
Yes.
Mr. Preston.
Yes.
Mr. Cassiotis.
Yes.
And I'll abstain as I was not present.
And who was the second on that? I didn't see it.
It was Costa.
Thank you.
No, I made the motion.
Oh,
You made the motion. Who
Brian
was the-
seconded.
Okay.
Oh, Brian did. Okay, thank you.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. Minutes accepted. Town administrator updates and reports. Mr. Sheehan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of items tonight for the board and for the public. Primarily for the public, the Master Development Planning Committee is ramping up its public presentation campaign for the facilities project at 105 South Main Street. The committee will hold the first public presentation tomorrow night, May 5th at 7 p.m. They'll hold another one next Tuesday, May 11th, also at 7 p.m. Both of these meetings will be held via Zoom because of the ongoing pandemic restrictions. We will record those and put those online so that if people are unable to make the meetings, they can see the discussion, the presentation and discussion and questions and all that. The committee will be back before the board on later in May. I think we're scheduled for the 18th for them to come back in. In fact, I know we're scheduled to have them back in on the 18th. They're meeting with a number of other entities over the next couple of weeks to build support and get the word out about the project. So staff at the police station, fire station, council on aging, and Memorial Hall will host some open tours of those buildings. We'll do that in the most socially distanced way that we can. Those will be held on Saturday, May 15th, and again, Saturday, May 20th. We'll have more information on that on the website and on social media. The Mass House of Representatives recently completed its budget for fiscal year 2022, which begins on July 1. Our representatives, Sally Cairns and Brad Jones, were able to include funding for 2 Middleton projects of $50,000 each. The first, $50,000 for a fiber optic network that will connect our municipal buildings with the regional hub in Danvers for the regional IT that we've been working on for the last couple of years. I know there was a question about what will happen when we move out of these buildings, and is this a wasted investment? And it certainly is not, because we'll just connect all the new buildings to the existing fiber network. So certainly not a wasted effort to do this now, and sooner is better than later on this project. The reps also secured $50,000 for sidewalk relocation on South Main Street. This is associated with the facilities project. The Master Development Planning Committee had fairly early on in the site design process, made the decision to relocate the existing sidewalk behind the wall on the property in order to give it a little bit of separation from Route 114 and also tie it in more closely with the project at 105 South Main Street. 50,000 is will not get the whole sidewalk done, but it'll get a good chunk of it done. So we certainly appreciate the ongoing support of our delegation and their advocacy in getting these funds approved, at least on the House side. We'll see what happens in the Senate. Hopefully funding is able to survive the Senate process and any reconciliation process.
Before you leave that topic, I
Sure.
just want to, to make sure that, people understand that this, $50,000 wasn't just for general sidewalks in the community, of which many people, see a need for it, but it is very specific to this project, and moving the sidewalk behind that wall, I believe, was an idea that was talked about and the committee embraced from the public design meetings that they had. So this really isn't for a sidewalk grant, it's a municipal complex grant.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Costa. That's a good point. It did come out of one of the public presentations back in the fall of 2019. I think that recommendation came from some of the residents at one of those meetings. So we continue to await guidance on the use of ARPA funds, the American Recovery Plan Act funds. I have another webinar this week. The latest I heard was sometime around May 9th or 10th. The guidance will be out, and so we'll use that. As I mentioned in my email to the board the other night, our hope is that they get the guidance right, that by taking a little bit extra time, all the bugs are worked out of this after the first big funding legislation back last spring. They released the guidance fairly quickly for the CARES Act, and then they went back a number of times to revisit that and tweak that. And it did make for some additional work for municipalities and other entities receiving these monies. So we're hopeful that this will lead to a smoother long-term effort to take advantage of this funding. So as we know more, we'll share that with the board and with the public. Finally, we've talked a couple of times in the last couple of months about the Public Works Department. It's a busy time of year. I guess, maybe the question is, what is not the busy time of year for the DPW? But spring is a particularly busy time. They've been doing a lot of paving work, milling and paving recently on Northwoods, Samus, and Hemlock, which was a Chapter 90 project. Overlay paving on Pinedale, Perkins, and a portion of Highland, which is local funds, the local $100,000 that we appropriate every year as a supplement to the state Chapter 90 money. Gravel roads have been graded, catch basins cleaned, and the streets all swept. That's been wrapped up for a little while now. Work is continuing on the front of the Oakdale Cemetery. If you have a chance to go by, it looks nice. They did a nice job weaving a Versalock style wall into the original stone wall in the front. So the original stone wall still remains, and then as you head up the main drive into the cemetery, there's a Versalock style wall in there that blends in nicely. They'll be doing some paving in there, and they're continuing to work on the garage at the entrance. And then, not to make light of it, I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago about the trash truck breaking down yet again. This is the truck that we have on the capital plan for 22 for $200,000. It broke down again yesterday inside the OPR recycling facility. So I think there was a hydraulic leak there. So it is back in the shop. Town meeting and July 1st can't come soon enough so that we can replace this vehicle and get something more reliable to haul our solid waste, whether it's trash or recycling. So that's what I've got for tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. If there's nobody else with any discussion, then, well, thank you, Andy. Move on to the second item on the agenda, which is, as always, our public comment period, where we invite anybody from the town residents to join us at this time on every meeting to give us a public comment or express any concerns they may have. And I guess I'm looking at the board here, but I'll let Tanya confirm that I don't see anyone that I believe would be on with us right now for that reason.
Chairman, I don't believe there's anyone here.
Okay.
There is for public comment. Could unmute yourself. No, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's move on to number 3, which is something I moved from last meeting to tonight, which is now a chance for us to review and vote to adopt the municipal vulnerability preparedness plan presented last meeting by Kristen Kent, our conservation officer. The full report is available at middletonmass.gov under the heading of municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. It was long, it was involved, but I don't know if anyone wants to add any more to that, or if you want to make a motion, we can have a vote. Anybody? No?
So I'll move to adopt the municipal vulnerability preparedness plan.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
A motion and a second. If I could ask Mr. Hooton to take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Pentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
Mr. Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
All right, motion carries unanimously. And thanks to Kristen for putting that together for us. On to number 4, which is a request by Man to Man on behalf of Northeast River Estates LLC to assign a street name to a proposed subdivision road located at 123 River Street. And if I can, allow me to welcome Jill Mann with us this evening for item number 4. Jill.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Chairman Cassiotis. I'm Jill Mann here on behalf of Northeast River, the petitioner in connection with a 14-unit subdivision. And I was here last meeting just to see if we could select a name because the planning board would like that shown during the permitting process. Because it's Northeast Tennis Center and has been for, as long as I've lived here, so it has to be at least 30 years. And Mr. Cassiotis, you probably, or Paul Pelicelli probably knows even best, right? It's been here for a very, very long time. So when we were thinking about names, we actually, believe it or not, I Googled who is the most famous woman tennis player, and it's Serena Williams. So we submitted the name as Serena Way. I figured I would do a shout out to women tennis players.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there really isn't a formal list, I guess, anymore
Right.
for the properties, and quite frankly, it was kind of appropriate because it did recognize the I guess the legacy that is the tennis center, and that was the reason for our request. And even that, I think Serena Williams played at Ferncroft one year, didn't? I think so.
It probably did. They had quite a run there for years where they were holding a pro tournament.
Okay, you remember that. They had that tennis tournament. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so I guess we would request that would be the name if, that met the favor of this board. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so while there wasn't actually a formal list, but we did spark some discussion afterwards.
Oh.
And it got us to think about, some other areas of town that we hadn't, that we want to address with naming, but,
I have an alternative suggestion.
Okay, sir.
Pike's Peak for Pike Messenger, who has been involved, in the community for many years, is a founding member of the Middleton Stream Team that's, developed all the canoe landings that, people can enjoy. So I think it would be an appropriate recognition.
Well, I don't know. Peak could be the last name. It doesn't have to be street, lane, or Ave.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think the term peak will make it a little bit.
It makes it a little awkward, but
Yeah, and obviously there is a Pikes Peak. I guess we'd be the second location in the world that has a Pikes Peak.
I can assure you that there is, because I think we probably have all skied it at some point, right? Or I think there is a Pikes Peak for skiing.
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't
back in
know
my old
where,
days.
but yeah.
So I don't
Pikes
have
Road,
I don't have a disagreement
Pikes
with
Lane?
naming it that way. Just I think the peak is a little bit
Okay,
cumbersome.
Nice.
Pikes Way, Pikes Lane.
That is a
Okay.
very awkward name. I mean, it's up to the board. It's just Pike. I love Pike Messenger. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. I just wonder if maybe there should be some other way to honor him than calling a street Pike's Way.
How about Messenger?
I don't know. I can't. A street's a street, as far as I'm concerned, I guess.
So we have in the past actually named a road other than an individual's last name to represent somebody, which was Flying Fox Way. And I understood why. It was a veteran also. While I like the idea of Pike, I also like the idea of, again, using the last name as well. But
Oh, like Messenger Circle or Messenger Way or something? Is that what you
That's
mean, Mr.
fine.
Costa?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
I like that. I mean, I think Pike's name's nice, but I think the last name is a little better.
Okay.
I would agree with you.
All right. Well, then if it sounds like perhaps we can get someone to make a motion for that. Or
So
Messenger-
Circle Way, Road, does anybody have a preference? Lane,
I just
anybody?
Messenger Way kind of like says a little about Pike. Messenger's Way, I don't know. Just Pike's Way, kind of like as a way as opposed to street, but I don't really care.
lane or road or.
Circle, whatever. I mean, I'm just asking because if
No,
we
what-
I think-
usually they'll send it over like that.
What would you prefer for a last? If it's Messenger, what would you prefer? Or writing it down?
I like the name Messenger, I really do.
No, but
So,
after-
I don't know. Messenger Circle, I always think of Circle and Lane because it's short. It's only 14 homes. So I always think of making it kind of a small name. Like James Avenue, it's a big street, right? So that's why I kind of like it when people do that. So Lane, Circle, Drive, whichever one the board likes best. I defer to you completely.
Costa?
So Messenger Circle.
Messenger Circle? Okay.
I'll make that
Well,
motion.
that's the motion.
I'll second it then.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Then if I could ask you, Tim, take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
yes.
Mr. Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Perfect. I appreciate your time this night.
Thank you.
Messenger Way it is.
Thank you.
Thanks,
John.
Jill.
Circle.
Hey,
Circle, right?
Oh, Circle. I'm so sorry. I'm stuck on something. Circle.
Very good.
Hey,
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks,
Mr. Chairman, we I think it's probably a good time for us to start to reinvigorate a process for future naming process. While I appreciate that the planning board wants the naming to happen before they come before the planning board, so they can actually state, instead of the redevelopment of parcel number whatever, to state the redevelopment of so and so lane, way, circle. But I think historically we have in the town gone toward the naming after veterans. We do have a pretty large veterans list. I just think we should probably at some point take a look at what we may want to do in the future. So when we come up with some naming conventions, that when developers or owners come before us, there's at least a little bit of a process that they understand.
I agree. I think, so we can have for the next time, somewhat of a formula or, a basic outline as to what, what's required in from, from what existing lists we could compile that, potentially names could come from.
I mean, there, is that, I think 2008 policy on naming that Andy, sent. So, and that outlines, different things. One thing that we haven't done is compile a list based on that policy from which we would have sort of a ready thing. Okay, these are the names that comply with the policy we want to follow, and rank them in some order. So the next, street comes, there's kind of a natural choice.
Right. Good. That's what I meant. So,
So adding some additional individuals based on the 2008, which is honoring individuals that have contributed time and effort to the town, those that have contributed to the state, to the community, both veterans, non-veterans, and others. So I think the list we've been historically working off of is just the veterans list. We should just make sure that we have a comparable list for other individuals that have contributed, 20 plus years.
When there was a list from the senior center, there was a list from the veterans. There was like 4 different agencies who made lists.
We can work on that and try to pull together a sort of comprehensive list that is reminiscent of the spirit of the policy that Costa mentioned.
Okay.
All right, thanks. And if you could use, like Tim mentioned, whatever we have existing out there, pull it together. I was going to ask you for that. So we have something to go by. Thank you. All right. Without anything else on that, we'll go to number 5, which is our discussion about transitioning to in-person meetings, including technology needs, amendment of our COVID meeting policy, which I have. It's number 5 in our packet. Andy, I don't know if you probably want to.
Yeah, so Costa mentioned this at the last meeting. I did not put together a formal transition plan where things are still a little bit up in the air. We have not changed our operations at town facilities. They've been pretty much in place since last June. And I guess I think there's still a couple of things to consider. One is that it's problematic to meet at Fuller Meadow until such time as school is out in June, and I'm not sure what the last day is. I think the 17th, maybe, something like that. So for those boards and committees that typically meet at Fuller Meadow, I think it's still a bit of a challenge there. The library is starting to do some in-person browsing. I don't know if that's started yet. I think that's starting sometime this month. And and then there's, and since Paul and Adam are on, I'd like to sort of weave them into the conversation about the technological issues that might present themselves. We did hold that single in-person meeting for the police chief interviews, and that I didn't watch it after the fact, but it seems like it went off okay. And so maybe the default position is to do something like that from the get-go. But Paul and Adam, I don't mean to put you on the spot, or Tanya, if you could weigh in on any of the tech issues that we need to work through.
No.
Adam? Hang on. I had to unmute myself. So I don't foresee a lot of technical issues. What we'd have to do is just basically find a way to make sure that the audio is properly routed into so that the people, the public who wish to attend can still hear everything clearly. That might require a little bit of finagling together, but I don't foresee any major technical issues with getting back to in-person meetings.
So Andy, and maybe Adam and Paul, has live connectivity ever occurred or been completed at the library? I know at one point it was being proposed. It could be recorded there, but couldn't, if I remember correctly, Paul, couldn't be broadcast live, at least through the cable channels. Is that still the case?
No, we can go live from the library. to the best
We
of my
can go
knowledge.
live from the library.
If we can go live from the library, I mean, as it relates to this board, I think we should be back in person. And if we can't be at Fuller Meadow, then I think we should be at the library on our Tuesday night meetings or every other Tuesday night meeting. Obviously, July and August, we do an abbreviated calendar due to a shortened need and less items on the agenda post town meeting. But I think we should move to that.
That's what I was thinking. That's the time to do it.
Yeah, easier transition.
Easy transition, July and August. We have less meetings. And we have our option of school or library, and we'll just do that and see how it goes. I like your idea.
I would add to that you know, I hope going forward, as we return to in person, that the Zoom component of our meetings continue. It's actually been a great way for folks to be able to interact with us. Now, I would, you know, when we do go back fully remote, it still would be a great opportunity for individuals to, during our public comment period. I mean, let's be realistic. It's not easy for whether young families, old, or anybody in between on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock to, you know, slog down to either Fuller Meadow or the library. And if there is some type of silver lining that's come out of COVID and all of us being in our living rooms and kitchens doing all of our work full time, is the ability to Zoom and Teams meetings and actually do this. I mean, our operations of government continued, but you know, I think there's a rationale for us to be back together. I think there's also a rationale for folks that want to come and be heard or see and participate. Secondly, I'd like to also know about, while the library may be starting to open up to browsing, I just want to know what the plan is to actually get the library back and reopened. I mean, the CDC guidance that has come out specifically about the cleaning of surfaces, and they've greatly scaled back the requirements to clean and sanitize that were previously thought to be the case. Add to that, we are continuing to plummet in our cases and numbers here, both in Middleton and the North Shore, Essex County, Massachusetts, and across the country. I think there is high time that we get our facilities open again. I mean, I was talking to somebody today that, you know, from talking about that their student hasn't had an opportunity to meet their teacher in person because they've been, in their case, remote at home. I know there's a lot of folks that are regular visitors of the library, and the interaction of our staff there. I think this is good for everybody to get our doors open again. And you know, the Council on Aging may be a little bit more of a difficult change because it is a substantially smaller facility than the library, and ensuring that we are not over capacity. And what I don't want to see is somebody coming to the Council on Aging when it's open and being turned away because of that. So there may need to be a need to have some type of communication when individuals are looking to access. But I think it's time to get our facilities open and get back to the business of in-person supporting of the public and the taxpayers.
We'll get I know that the library director, Melissa Gasper, is anxious to get things open again and get people back in. I know that the trustees are anxious to get the building open and their patrons back in again. So I know they had a conversation at their most recent meeting. I'll get more information on the specifics of the reopening plan for the Flint and get that to the board.
And then once we understand that, I think it would be nice to, in one of your last emails that you do and other communication, Facebook and others, to kind of let people know that we are getting back to being fully reopened. You know, the the numbers I've seen on vaccination levels, while not mandatory, have been extremely robust in Middleton. Those that are eligible have taken advantage of it. While it's not a force field around us, it surely, as we've seen from the numbers, is making a dramatic effect in individuals being able to get back to whatever sense of normalcy post-COVID we're going to have. And I can't think of a better way than opening up our facilities and letting folks and taxpayers have access again.
As far as, meetings go, the policy does allow for a board or committee to meet in person if there is adequate space, as determined by the town administrator. So any, committee that wants to, get back to that can suggest where and how they can do it safely for, Andy's, approval as we transition to everybody being able, to do it.
And again, keeping the Zoom component just further expands the transparency of live and recorded access to our meetings, including committees that historically have not been able to do so. I mean, I use the finance committee, for example, a committee that very really their joint meetings with us were the only ones that they were ever recorded, and now due to Zoom. So between that and getting back to in-person, and there are certain committees that I got to tell you, the in-person component actually can make a dramatic difference. Thinking of the planning board, for example, the Board of Appeals, for example, that become a little bit more of a hands-on discussion. So, I appreciate how we had to pivot. I appreciate that all of our elected and appointed officials have let us all into their living room and kitchens over the last year. But let's get this open and then provide some communication out to folks. I also think this is a significant message to send that, we're back, we're open, we're operational.
Very good. Is this something we want to put a date on, as far as we've kind of dovetailed into the next agenda item? But in regards to the technology needs and whatnot, do we require to put a date on, and when and where?
I wouldn't feel comfortable putting a date on it at this moment, but I would certainly be able to provide an update at the next meeting.
Okay. I just hasten to say then we'd be looking at perhaps post the annual town meeting. Okay. All right, then. That's good. And
sorry, I need to unmute myself when I wanted to talk. I'm not sure at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. I just want to be clear on this for this meeting. And then, like I said, that basically dovetailed into item number 6, was a discussion of the reopening plans for municipal facilities. I don't know if, is that enough?
Nothing else to add on that, Mr. Chair.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. All right, thank you. Then with that, let's we'll move on to item number 7, which is a discussion of our summer schedule meetings. Recommended dates being June 1, 15, 29, July 13, August 17, and having our regular schedule resume September 7th. I don't know if anyone has any conflicts on that. They want to bring them up now. I don't.
So the only thing I'd say, I mean, I know it's technically 3 meetings in June. It's just the way that the calendar falls. But, usually as soon as town meeting is over, usually when it's in May, our kind of level of workload starts to decrease. So, our town election is
the 12th.
12th. So, maybe the meeting on the 15th for reconstitution and election, and then from there, I mean, I'm not sure if maybe the 29th would definitely be needed or not. I mean, I defer to you, Andy, as well, as if you think there's a lot of items that are coming forward. I mean, if they're not.
Well, you should, hold that meeting, and it's easier to cancel a meeting than to schedule a meeting. So as we get, closer, you can make that determination.
Okay, you want to do that? All right, then. All right, then we'll do that then. We've all seen what the dates are. We'll look at those and then we'll make the adjustments as needed as we get there. All right, so without any further discussion on that, I'll move to item number 8, which is our continued discussion and location and date of the annual town meeting and town election, discussing whether to consider a reduction of quorum. I'm not sure if much has changed with this at this point, Andy.
Not really, Mr. Chair. So just more of an update and then a brief sort of planting of the seed about the quorum issue. We did send the warrant book out to print yesterday. I believe it's 75 pages, give or take. So pretty comparable to what it's been the last few regular years, a little different from last year. But in terms of size, we've modified some of the documents that we've included. Sarah Wood has been constantly tweaking the budget documents that we include in the warrant book, and I think it's been I know it's all been for the better. So hopefully the public finds it helpful. So that went out, like I said, yesterday. The prison is helping us again. The print shop moved out of Middleton and it's up in Lawrence now. So they're taking care of that. It'll be mailed to every household again, like it has been historically. Last year, we did just a 1-page mailer because so much was in flux as we got around town meeting. In terms of the logistics of town meeting, I have to give a big shout out to Eileen Twiss and to Barb Pacelli for their help in coordinating a lot of the moving parts in this thing. Having an outdoor town meeting is a lot of work, and there's a lot of pieces that we don't even think about on a normal basis. So everything from obviously the big things like getting a tent contractor, a tent vendor to set up a roughly a 100 by 280 foot tent, and then all of everything that happens under the tent, the audio, the visual LED screens, which are actually going to be television walls. It's going to be pretty different from what we typically do, but there's a lot going into that. We had a couple of meetings this week. We had a large meeting yesterday with department heads from DPW, MELD, Inspectional Services, Health, Police, Fire, others, to work through and identify all of the issues that we need to take into consideration, from accessibility issues to getting power to the field, how we're going to manage parking, and to that point, a big thanks again to Chris Kakoulis at Angelica's for allowing us to use the parking lot at 49 South Main for this event. So otherwise, it's coming along. As I say, there's a lot of logistics, and I'm confident that we'll have it all. That it'll all come off well. Weather being the big unpredictable piece of this thing. So, Barb and Eileen, I don't know if I don't mean to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add in terms of the planning for this.
Or just cross fingers for weather.
Yeah.
Okay. No. All right.
Go ahead, Bob. You take it away first.
But I'm sorry, I lost all sound.
Oh, well.
Our internet keeps going in and out. I can't hear.
All right, well, I'm
convenient, I know.
I'm happy to jump in. So,
okay.
Are you good, Barb? No, you're not good, Barb.
I'm in and out.
That's perfect.
I'm not good.
Yeah, she's
All right, I'll do it. So,
I know how shy you are, Eileen. Maybe you could.
Yeah, as unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I'll try to, help the moderator here. So, we're good. I mean, I really feel good about where we're at with the logistics. right down to the porta potties. I think we are good. I just hope the 1,000 people that we planned for will come. But if not, we're going to have a lot of space. But we're good. I really feel confident that we can get through town meeting. And so unless there's like a lot of questions, I'm really happy with the vendors. I'm comfortable. The department heads have come together. Like Andy said, we had everybody out in the field yesterday, and everybody is getting back to me even tonight. Like, what else do you need? What can we do? So this is all hands on deck, and we just have to wait and see how this all unfolds. And elections will happen. We're going to get to that election, but right now town meeting is the focus, and we're in good shape. I think we would all agree who have been really actively involved that we're in good shape. So
that's great. Thank you. And I know how attentive you both have been, and that's obviously it's so important for us at this time. So
we've never done this before, so
right.
We
Thank
just
you so much.
go with it.
And we hope to never do it again.
I hope to never do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
So
All right.
the other thing, and again, this is just planting the seed for the board's consideration. With the project on the public facilities project on the warrant for town meeting, I wouldn't expect that we would have trouble attracting 100 people. The concern I have, and this is echoed, I think, by Eileen and Barb, is that once we get through Article 22, which is the project, do we then lose a lot of people and we end up with less than 100? And there's still a lot of important work to do after the project. That's Article 22 out of 35. So there's still substantial work after that. So the thought was, or one thought is, do we want to have a quorum reduction in place in case we lose, in case we drop below 100, so that we can continue moving forward. So obviously, if we only have 40 people at town meeting, I don't think it's the appropriate thing to go forward and ask for approval of the project.
Right.
And I don't expect that that's going to be the case, but I'd hate to see if we have 600 people show up, 520 of them leave right after the vote. So,
right.
So there's a process for the reduction of quorum, which we went through last year. Requires a public notice at least a week before the meeting at which the board will take it up. So the board, I guess what I would suggest is the board meets on Tuesday, June 5th, which is the Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day, and the day after Memorial Day, and the Tuesday before the town meeting. So if the board wants to have it on the agenda, we can make sure that everything is in place so that it can be discussed at that time and acted upon or not acted upon.
Do we need what kind of turnaround do we need with the state? Is there any approval like that with the Secretary of State or Attorney General? Okay.
We
all right.
just have to provide them with notice, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
We do have to provide the public with notice in town, and then we can inform the Attorney General after.
Okay.
So
You have to give 7 days notice to the public beforehand, and then I think you have to give notice to the Attorney General's office within 10 days afterwards. And
in the alternative, could I ask, not trying to be vote or anything like that, but couldn't we very well make a motion to move, if we had 200 people, make a motion to move the article to the end of the meeting?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's nothing that states that. I mean, we have opened and closed the warrant. I know you talked about printing, but there's nothing that says that this board can't move the order of the of the articles. Now, secondly, I mean, the whole rationale for the authority given to cities, towns, because cities don't have town meetings, to move their quorum numbers was about public health and COVID. I think we're pretty clear that just given the dynamics of the topics that are coming to town meeting, we're not going to have a quorum problem. Just the level of attention that is growing, which I think is great, in the topics before town meeting, specifically the projects. That's first. Second, the issue of folks leaving after Article 22, that's not a public health issue. I understand we could move our quorum numbers for that, or I mean, for any reason, but it was really a reason that was given for public health. If we're going to move our quorum down, then move it because of public health. We're doing our meeting outside. We're not, I mean, last year we did our meeting inside Howe Manning. We're going outside. Guys, we are outside. There is no need to reduce our quorum because it's not a public health issue. I think as a town, there will be folks that will leave after the article, but I think there'll be a lot of folks that'll stay, and we all know who they are. They're the ones that showed up last June when we had town meeting, when it was going to be difficult. They're the ones that will come to town meeting no matter what. They're the folks that are committed and focused. And this board and the moderator and others can clearly describe to folks what will happen if we lose a quorum. Never mind that we would have to continue the meeting at another date, possibly spend additional dollars on the rental and otherwise. But moving and changing the quorum for a purpose that I see as non-public health, I can't support that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brian. I mean, we've had other meetings where there's, an article where there's a lot of interest in, that's early, in the warrant. And people have come, voted, some have left. We've managed to complete the town meeting. So
Right.
I don't see a reason to lower the quorum.
Can I just say something with all due respect? The statute requires you all to give 7 days notice if you're going to get into the merits of this discussion. So I just want to caution the board, you don't want to be in violation of the statute.
Okay.
And discuss it on the merits now.
Well,
Okay.
it's on our, this is a item on our agenda for discussion of location and annual town meeting and to consider a reduction of a quorum. I mean, if we wanted, we could vote on reducing the quorum right now.
No, you
Saying we
can't. Because
Okay,
you have to give 7 days notice to the public.
but we
And
can.
About compliance with the law, so you want to be consistent in that compliance, I would think.
Okay. Well, okay, so I'm of a mind to, I don't know, Tim, I'd ask you, but I'm of a mind to agree with my fellow board members, and maybe we don't want to put it off to a next meeting. The decision on a quorum.
You can't make, just to be clear, you can decide not to take any action.
Right.
So you can decide
Okay.
that the quorum is the quorum and you're going to go forward.
Okay.
End of discussion.
That's
The
what
reason
our
I put it
agenda
on was-
allows under the discussion.
Right.
Okay.
And the reason I put it on was if you think that there may be a need to reduce the quorum or a desire, then we just need to prepare for that.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like there is. So
Right.
I think I think you can call it a day now.
Okay.
And if we lose quorum, we lose quorum.
All right. All right. Well, thank you then, everybody.
So,
Then let's,
yeah, no vote needed on any
no
of that.
vote needed. No, just the discussion. Thank you, everyone. We can, we'll leave the quorum as is. All right, on to number 9 is a vote to accept $12,500 from the Department of Fire Services fire equipment grant to be used for turnout gear. I think that's always an easy vote to make. I'll take a motion.
I'll make
We'll
that.
move to accept.
I'll
Second.
Second.
In a second. Okay, great.
Right.
Tim, can I have a vote, please?
Sure. Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
Mr. Cassiotis,
Yes, sir.
and myself, yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Okay, with that, I'll ask if there was any new business that we have? I don't
Yeah,
believe there is
so-
any. Yeah,
I've got an item, Mr. Chairman. So
Go ahead.
if I could, and I don't think we need to make action on it tonight. I just want to kind of lay out where I think this board should consider going in the future. There's been a lot of conversation across the town over the last several months. And I would like to think some of it has been created by the warrant article that is creating a reserve fund for sidewalks. But I mean, earlier this evening, Andy updated us on some legislative action to help reduce some of the costs of the project as it relates to sidewalks there. I've been hearing clearly, we've all been seeing it on social media, comments to folks around town and others of a want for more sidewalks in town. Secondly, we consistently see developers that are coming before the planning board as well as the Board of Appeals asking for the ability to receive some changes from zoning requirements as allowed. And many times, whether it's our town planner or certain board members on both planning and Board of Appeals have been asking for sidewalks to be included in those projects. Many times there's been pushback that's happened on that. I just want to remind everybody, I mean, we have aggressively gone after the Complete Streets program. I don't think there's anybody that's on this meeting tonight or anybody in town that would state that we have enough sidewalks. Rick, I give you a tremendous amount of credit, you and your board, for the work that you've done on the rail trail and expanding our rail trail and hopefully in the future expanding further. But quite honestly, we have right now a rail trail that is completed between where we have sidewalks. So we at least have some ability that folks that could walk to the rail trail. But once that expands, there's going to be shortages there. So I think it's time that this board get serious about what we as a board, as the chief executive body, not the chief executive officer, that's Andy, but the chief executive body of the town, to kind of set the tone and the message of where we think we should be going, both with the dollars that'll be available in the future through the reserve fund, but also having some conversations with the Board of Appeals, a committee that we appoint, the planning board, a committee that is elected, our DPW director, our planning director, our administrator, our police chief, our fire chief, and others to talk about a plan to be serious about addressing sidewalk issues. Now, this is probably going to elicit a lot of comments from folks in town. I've seen them. Why can't we have sidewalks in this street? Why can't we have that street? There are issues involved. A lot of it is our ownership of property ends at the edge of pavement. I've heard a lot of comments thrown around of let's take property by eminent domain. I can't think of anything worse for the government to do is to come in and take somebody's property. Even for enumeration, but there's conversations that we can have as we plan around this of if somebody is developing and putting in a road and they're abutting property on that road, let's continue sidewalks. Let's talk to abutters and neighbors about potential easements at no cost to expand the pedestrian ability in town and make this town truly what was talked about as it related to the Complete Streets program. But this is going to mean some serious conversations. I think this board needs to take the leadership of it, and I think some other boards have to be a part of that. School committee, for example, you know, as we saw as schools started to reopen, some parents were struggling of whether or not they were going to put their child on a bus. And we know what the queuing line looks like at Howe Manning and Fuller Pond right now. Imagine if we actually had more sidewalks that will allow kids to do what I did when I was a kid, which was actually walk to school. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you, and then I actually have, this is probably an overused term, but a summit on this, that this board needs to lead and bring all of the appropriate players. So I'd ask you if I could work with the town administrator on this to kind of start a discussion and figure out what that process will be. And then after we get through town meeting, and if they give us approval on the sidewalk fund, and we can start with Ernest and be able to actually have a plan that can be part of our ongoing and long-term capital needs.
Brian, thank you for that. And I would add to include Katrina O'Leary, the town planner, so we can have, you know, the actual, you know, get our hands around what our sidewalk, the sidewalk fund, and like you said, the pushbacks we get, you know, where the money needs to be used and those types of things. I think that's That's a
So
good idea.
I am a big believer that when our boards, whether it's the Board of Appeals or the planning boards, are able to provide some relief to a developer or builder that is looking for something, and this town is, and many times, willing to work with those developers, I think we also should be willing to state that we want something as well as a town. And what is our commitment to pushing for those efforts to expand sidewalks, pedestrian access, walkability? We're going to talk clearly at town meeting about what the project at the old golf course will mean, and now having a consolidated municipal complex and a, for the first time ever, maybe a real town common. Yeah, we have a sidewalk in front, but most of the main roads that connect into that, there are no sidewalks. And if there's going to be some recreation, even passive recreation ability there, in addition to our rail trail and others, we need to stop beating around the bush and actually have some really honest discussions. And again, I go back to the Board of Appeals. This is a board that this board appoints. And I am getting really sick and tired of hearing the Board of Appeals say, well, we can't ask a developer to do that. Let me tell you something. We absolutely can ask a developer to do that. And my opinion is, if the Board of Appeals doesn't want to take that into consideration, then it's high time we look at new Board of Appeals members. So as you can tell, I'm getting a little passionate about this, but this, if not, don't even waste your time creating a sidewalk fund. If we want to continue to do what we do, where we have sidewalks to nowhere, like the road to nowhere, because developers in between weren't willing to step up and the town wasn't willing to actually push some comprehensive plan, then we should just stop wasting our time.
Thank you for that spirited comment, Brian. I would agree. You know, the sidewalk fund, it is what it is now, but sometimes I think there is I don't want to say, but there's some acquiescence to developers at time that, you know, when it comes to that. So I agree with that.
Is there any chance we can contact Comcast and have a cable to our town moderator's house?
Yeah.
I think there's been some outages actually popping around town. I heard today.
Okay. All right. I feel bad cutting her off, but okay. So all right.
You may have to mute her.
All right, with that, then I'd like to make an announcement. That'll be the end of our, well, I'll take a motion to adjourn so that we can go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A and 3, with respect to the status of or strategy for contract negotiations with collective bargaining units. I guess I can take the vote to go into the session, but I will be recusing myself for those CBA discussions.
Mr. Chair, if I could, there's also one real property item that I want to talk to the board about.
Oh, okay.
That came up since the agenda was posted.
Go right ahead.
That'll be within the executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, so I'll second that motion. I'll make that motion to go into executive.
I will second that motion.
All right. And Tim, if you take a vote, please.
Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Creston,
Yes.
Mr. Cassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes. And we will not be returning in regular session.
That's correct. Meeting adjourned, and we'll enter executive session. Thank you, everyone.